Hello, everyone joining us here. My name is Florian Filtzinger from the Board of Directors of ISMETA, and I'm happy to introduce to you a former member of the Board of Directors, Susan Bauer, who is a Master Somatic Movement educator, Master Somatic Movement therapist, has a dance background, and is the author of the Embodied Teen. Susan, do you want to share more about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to teaching the workshop and talking with you today. Yeah, so I have a dance background, and my background in somatics was primarily through study of body-mind centering and ideokinesis. And as I got deeper into this world of embodiment, I got very interested and passionate about actually helping to bring this to our next generation. So yes, my book is called The Embodied Teen. I can show it to you briefly. And the subtitle is A Somatic Curriculum for Teaching Body-Mind Awareness, Kinesthetic Intelligence, and Social Emotional Skills. So how can we bring the depth of this work to particularly teenagers and young adults, let's say like college age youth?
Okay, and I know from the preparations of this call that you have a special plan for that, but I'd be very interested in what is one of the core benefits that a young person and a person learning that approach can have from your workshop.
Yes, well, I think I'd like to put it in their own words. I have many quotes in my book from students who actually went through this curriculum. And one of the things that came up again and again is people feeling afraid of their bodies. And, right now with the focus on social media and people all on their phones, there's quite an external focus. And that kind of translates into also a real distance from your own body and maybe even a fear. So it's really a way to compassionately and skillfully bring people more in touch with themselves and their own body in a deep way that's not threatening and that can begin to kind of calm down some of the outer noise. And that's what I find these teens really appreciate once they settle into the practice.
Susan, from what I learned in your 2-day workshop, you're gonna guide the participants who gonna maybe facilitate it to people or especially to youth and their participants then later. You're gonna guide them through the experience first, right?
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing in the workshop is first guiding them into those somatic practices, because really what we're teaching from is not just our words, we're teaching from our embodied presence. And so it's really important that we first get an experience for ourselves of what these practices are. And then in the second part of each day, we'll be looking at the pedagogy of, well, then how did I craft that and why, which I can talk about a little bit more. But the first step is the experience.
Okay, and actually you divided it into 8 parts, the pedagogy, right?
Oh, yes, I have 8 key pedagogy principles. And part of the reason I did that is no matter what background in somatics or movement you're coming from, you could create a curriculum based on your own expertise as long as you keep in mind these 8 pedagogy principles. Without any one of them, it's like a chair with 4 legs, without any one of them, the whole thing topples. And so I've tried to create this very stable framework for people to work from with those pedagogy principles. And I'll be going over those in the workshop.
Okay, and I think we should also not share too much because we want to either invite people to join the workshop on the Professional Development Center or get your book. If the workshop might be too much for them, we can mention that on that point. Is there anything else you would like to share to invite people to live participate? There's also going to be recordings, but it's way nicer to be with the group, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, what else I can tell you about that? We'll be doing breakout groups and time to process your experience as well. So, yes, do come live if you're going to come. But the other thing we're going to be covering is, I find that many of us have devoted our lives to these practices, whatever discipline you're coming from. But we have such a wealth and breadth of experience. Sometimes we've kind of forgotten how to go back to basics or how to work with a beginner. And you really need that kind of care and specificity when you're working with teens. So I'm going to be going over what are some of those basics? What are we teaching in somatics? And how do we keep that at the forefront so that we're being very specific? Like, for instance, how do you focus on your body? What does that mean? What are the steps to learn that and feel comfortable with that? So that's one thing we're going to look at. The other thing we're going to look at is what is the structure that we're going to put this in? Because, if you go into gym class and you're going to have basketball, you know that there's going to be a basketball, there's going to be a hoop. If you go into yoga, you know you're going to put down a mat and you're probably going to face the teacher and you're going to do some poses, right? But if I'm going into whatever we've called it, somatic class or body awareness, whatever you choose to call it, teens have no idea what they're going to be doing. So you really have to create some very methodical, specific structure so that they know what they're coming to and they get familiar and comfortable with the experience. So I'm going to be going over that as well. What would that look like?
Yes, creating the safety for a very vulnerable part of our society. And I think we can speak of every nation, like me being based in Europe, you being based in the United States. And I also think you're going to give a lot more input in the workshop about that special fragility of that group and what they especially need to open up for those practices.
Yes, and so we have like there's many, but six particular adaptations that I've made to how to teach the curriculum in terms of the pedagogy that relate to those eight pedagogy principles. And we're going to look at those as well. What is it for teens that specifically they need to create a safe environment for some of this vulnerable work? And that it stays fun because they don't just want to come and only kind of collapse and relax. They also need some energy. So, how do we balance that more parasympathetic inner deep sensing with our expressive sympathetic nature, right? For those of you who know those nervous system terms. So that's just one of the things we look at how to skillfully invite them in so that it stays about them. You're not some adult teaching at them, but you're inviting them into a process that they can have their own agency about their own body. That's very important at that age, at any age, but especially with teens.
And then also for people who are getting in touch with those methods first or in that depth. I want to thank you so much for this introduction to the journey that you're going to embark on with a group in the Professional Development Center. All the infos about the class will be found in the links below or tagged in any stories. Susan, I thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yes, I
And
just have one last thing I'm going to add, which is why are we doing this? And the reason is to help these teens develop a body consciousness and awareness that's geared towards self-care. So you can take that into your adult life. So please come join me if that sounds interesting to you.